What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's great to have you today. We have another amazing guest, a legend on Twitter. I've been following him for a while. He actually inspired me to tweet more often, and that is TechDev52. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. His Twitter link is in the video description below. Go and follow him, but not yet. Wait for the conversation. Hopefully you can hear me, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, loud and clear. Hopefully you can hear me too. Thanks so much for the invite. I remember watching your channel, seeing a couple episodes a while back. I remember we had, after the legendary dump there in April or May, I was wanting some direction as to what the heck was going on, and I remember listening to your very collected and calm view of things, and it's kind of surreal for me to be here as a guest with you today. So I appreciate you reaching out.
It's real, man. It's real. That's awesome to hear. Like that's kind of the goal of the channel. You know, we love analysis, but I feel like analysis is really just a tool we use here to kind of keep that, as you said, like serene, just calm. It's just a way to put like the chart mathematically or price change mathematically, and at least for me, I think that helps remove that itch inside of me that's like, make the wrong choice. Just whatever that is, just make the wrong choice right now. You don't have a lot of time. You have to make it. So that's awesome to hear, my friend. Do you want to tell everybody maybe how you got into trading? I don't know if that's like your craft or maybe crypto or a little bit about
you. Sure. I don't actively trade all that much. I find myself kind of wishing that I did more based on how much time I spend looking at charts.
Same.
But it's I'm I guess really what you would call a hodler. Hopefully not a bag hodler. But I mean, all of my positions were secured a long time ago, and I had determined for myself, and this was before I had started really looking at charts and really getting more active on Twitter and socials, that I was going to be my strategy was going to try to be to accumulate down towards close to the macro market cycle lows as best as I could, and then try to scale out towards the macro cycle or macro impulse top as best I could, and then
so buy low, sell high.
That genius strategy that
it's so easy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we can't all just do that. I like the strategy of buy low, sell higher. I think that's a little bit, or just buy and sell higher. I think that's a better. Yeah, buy and sell, and if you're not, if you can't take the intra-year volatility, then buy and come back in 10 years. But
some of the most successful people I know, that's what they did. They just bought Bitcoin and forgot about it. Now they were doing really well.
You forget your Coinbase login, and 5 years later you remember it, and you outperform 99% of crypto Twitter.
And then you start, like paid groups and maybe
you sell all your secrets. Yeah.
It's funny, man. You said the more you've gotten into kind of looking at the charts and stuff, like the less, you wish you traded more, but you trade less. And that's exactly what I've done. I've traded less and less the more I watch it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Is it that you don't have much time left to trade because of all the time you spend analyzing and sharing your content, or why do you think that is, that the less you spend, the more you spend time looking at charts, the less you actually find yourself trading?
It's a combination of things. Certainly the amount of time, creating content and creating charts, which are also content, that takes up time where, you can't be actionable in trading. But for me, I think it's maybe deeper than that. It's like the more I watch this and the more I see these cycles repeat over and over again, and there's like small iterations of them in a bigger cycle of people coming and going and their mindsets, and just watching the chart, it seems that the numbers are just in favor of most of the time doing absolutely nothing.
Agreed.
And I'm in the same position as you with my positions. I built them over years. Like the price is at 37K. A lot of people might think that's cheap, but like for me, it's like I'm not interested in buying at this price. Like last time I bought Bitcoin, it was like 4,000 or something, some very low
Mm-hmm.
price. And I've also seen, I've coached people personally and to kind of indirectly through the channel. I've seen the more active someone is in trading, and especially that's like tailored towards like day traders. People are trying to do many trades a day. It
Mm-hmm.
seems there is a very undeniable correlation between that and losing all of your money, and I've seen it
Yeah.
firsthand.
It,
And so it works out. A lot of the time I think people they want something and they want to make an action. And I think that comes from our
mhm,
emotions. But
mhm.
the stronger stance a lot of time is to do nothing really.
No, I agree. I mean, I would say a decent hybrid could be to carve out a percentage of your holdings of your portfolio that you dedicate strictly to swing trading on some time frame, and try to, make sure you don't have an emotional attachment to that percentage. Know that your goal is just to make small percentage gains on your swings and then rotate those gains back into your longer term holds, so you have a compounding effect a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly if you're trying to swing everything, um, the market's pretty good at not letting you do that, unless you're really, in the top 2% tier of traders, at which point you're going to need to dedicate a whole lot of time to it, and then you've got to consider the cost of that time or the value of that time.
Well,
For me,
what if
it's
what if
good.
I want to get rich like tonight, like by dinner, and I don't want to put in a lot of time? Then what do you
Oh
suggest?
boy, look up. Well, this would have worked better back in May. Look up any coin that's named after a canine and put
Okay,
$100 in each of it, and then come back in a
right.
month. But you may as well just do that across different games at in Vegas someplace. So
It's
it's
lottery tickets. Got it.
lottery tickets. But at the right point in the market cycle, it's lottery tickets that have, I think, an overall much higher probability
I agree.
in your favor than lotto tickets. But
Definitely agree.
yeah, yeah, you hear the get rich quick stories make the headlines.
Hmm.
The lose everything quick don't so much, but I think they're a much higher percentage of what happens.
Oh God,
So
a thousand for every one, easy. If not 10,000, I don't even
if
know.
not, yeah.
Well, I'm sure everyone wants to know what's on tech dev's mind for the charts here. A lot of people are spooked. Price seemingly hasn't moved in like a year now.
That's
What's going
exactly what
on?
it's
Tell
done.
us what's
Yeah.
going on.
Well, um, I no one has all the answers.
Hmm.
We all just have our best um, read of what we think is the highest probability scenario that's going on. I have made plenty of mistakes in my reading of what I thought was going on. I've learned a lot, I think, in the last 6, especially 3 months. Um, my initial read of where I thought things were going back in the last quarter of last year was that we were closer to what at the time I was calling the cycle top. And, you know, everyone can always say they misread things or they learn from their mistakes. I legitimately have tried to um, understand maybe why I thought we were later than I now think that we are, and it's actually caused me to uh, take up a view of the market that I'm sure our dear friend Will Clemente has. That is to define the cycles less in bear and bull terms,
Hmm.
and more in something else. And that something else can be, I guess, whatever you want it to be, and it can vary by person. For me, it's been to look at the market more as a series of impulses and corrections rather than bear markets and bull markets. And what what really seems most probable to me, which impressively is exactly what other analysts had been calling for 2 years ago. I don't know if you know a gentleman who goes by Credible Crypto on Twitter,
Mm.
but he is, in my opinion, a phenomenal analyst. Really has a solid hold on Elliott wave theory and a solid theory for how that fits into the larger Bitcoin picture. And he's got a scribble that he put out in April of 2020 when I think we were around here, actually, right after the COVID crash, or C19 crash, I should probably say, where he scribbled, we were here, he scribbled, okay, we're still in the midst of a correction after an initial impulse. That correction is going to take a triangular form, something like it did. Then we're going to have another impulse, a wave three of this larger impulse, as I see it. That's going to top somewhere right after 2021, and then we're going to have either a running flat or a running triangle wave four correction that's going to extend all the way through 2021 into 2022, and maybe by the start of Q2 or maybe even the middle of 2022, that's when we're going to then start our final fifth wave, where basically all of this is just sideways action in a complex wave four correction. And he has this scribbled out again from April of 2020, 2 years ago. So I posted recently on Twitter, I think there will never be a better scribble than what he did. So, and this is what I kind of have independently come to view the market as, is that I believe that what we saw in 2018 was everyone calls this a bear market, and you certainly can. Everyone has their own. The stock market definition is a 20% correction after over 2 months. By that definition, this was a bear market, right? But this was certainly, what people consider a bear market. To me, this is a correction, and I can show in other slides how I think this fits into the larger Bitcoin impulse structure. But this was a correction here. Then we had an impulse up, 5-wave structure impulse up in 2019. That was then followed by about a 470-day correction, during which point volume declined, aside from the capitulation event. Then we had another impulse up in starting at the end of 2020 up into early 2021, and then we're about 380-ish days into this correction. Basically a year of sideways price action, during which time volume has declined, aside from the May capitulation. I see similar structure going on here and levels in the RSI, this on-chain metric dormancy flow, which is not only at a bottom similar to back in March 2020, but if you look back to the other cycle lows, what people would call the cycle lows, it's at those levels too. And then this other on-chain metric that measures, this is like inverse buying power. So that the lower this goes, basically the higher the percentage of stablecoin market cap there is relative to Bitcoin. So generally you see larger bottoms at this zone. Like all of this to me looks just like two sets of the same pattern, where you had an impulse and a correction, impulse and a correction. And I am still expecting another big move up. That if you look at Elliott wave theory and you see that there generally is some wave symmetry that goes on, you might expect it to be about the same distance out as these two impulses were from each other. Could be at the end of this year, could be into 2023. But yeah, I mean, I know some people think that we had a fifth wave here, and I just don't, looking at all of this. So I really think that we're seeing, you basically could have just drawn a flat line here at 42,000. That's effectively what we've done for a year. Yep. I know alts have done something different, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I had like questions as you went.
We can dive into all that. We can look at, I've got longer term charts here that show, where I see this fitting in the bigger picture. But yeah, let's dive in. How do you see things?
Oh, I have the memory of a fly, so I'll go with what you were just saying.
All right.
Elliott wave. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. My viewers know how I feel about it. I'm curious how you feel about Elliott
Hmm.
wave
Hmm.
because you did cite it a few times, and I know some credible traders who do trade
Right.
by it. How do you? I don't know.
Hmm.
Like going back at the history of Bitcoin and looking at it,
Right.
do you see Elliott wave really throughout the history? Um,
Hmm.
and then I guess to follow that up with Elliott wave is why does it seem to me that when it comes to Bitcoin and Elliott Wave, it's just people constantly relettering and renaming
Hmm.
over and over and over again, and then eventually something happens and it's I don't know. Like I remember people trying to say that in 2019 that was
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
A or C or and then it just like later wasn't and then I don't know it just seems kind of like it's a great theory and markets do move in an Elliott wave kind of function but to
Right.
try to say okay this has to be this and that so I'm going to do this
Hmm.
next, does that make sense to you?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. I think we had actually chatted over DM about how it has seemed, and I agree with you that some of the what you most seem to find Elliott wave counts, proposed counts, cropping up in extreme bear cases where they're kind of ignoring all other legitimate historical support levels, price action based and on chain based, blowing right through even the 200-week moving average because they put a big long line down that they say has to come because of their supposed Elliott wave count. So it definitely can be abused, I think, to project the most ridiculous of bear cases and the most ridiculous of bull cases.
Mm.
So I don't necessarily think that it's obviously it's not an easy skill set. It's easy to abuse. It's very hard to use properly. I am not an Elliott wave expert by any means, so I try not to use it too aggressively to make specific projections about targets and timing. But I do think it is useful to understand the particular structure that corrections can take. I should
Agree.
have thrown an example in here to show a real world example. But if we go, let's come out here to something like this here. So this is what I'm calling my secondary case of how I could see the Bitcoin cycles, um, or an Elliott wave count that I could see being applicable. There's a lot here, so I don't want to overwhelm. But for example, these two graphics here. I mean, I see um, some people concerned that because we broke this local low over here at
Mm-hmm.
40K, that means we put in a macro lower low and are therefore guaranteed to have a major downtrend ahead.
Mm.
Where if you understand that this is actually a perfectly acceptable and actually common correction structure. Actually, this is a running flat, so it's actually one of the more rare structures. The more
Mm.
common one is to have an expanded flat, which I don't show here, but it has C actually go below A.
Mm-hmm.
You can look back, if you look back to Amazon in, I believe, about 2010, it put in a textbook expanded flat structure where you had a big run up similar to Bitcoin. It dropped down, it went in, it put in a higher high, dropped all the way back down, actually broke below what would be 28K, uh, danced around out here for a couple of weeks, and then shot way back up. So if you didn't have any familiarity with Elliott wave theory and you didn't know that an expanded flat was a very common way of how a larger impulse structure could correct mid impulse, you might think as soon as you set a lower low, that means the sky is falling and we're guaranteed to plummet into the depths, when in fact is not necessarily the case. That it can be still part of a bullish correction mid impulse, so long as it's not followed up by a very clear lower high.
Mm.
So I think it's important from that standpoint to understand that it's there can be complex ways that markets can correct with higher highs and then even lower lows while still being in a larger bullish structure. So I do think, and I could be wrong, but I do see a lot of altcoins correcting in that nature. I know people are expecting really low targets on some of their alts, like Cardano, which has set a lower low, I think, relative to its July low, but I still see that as a valid expanded flat structure, and I do think that there is a fifth wave to come, at least a fifth wave. We could even be earlier than that, but
that's a beautiful chart, by the way. I love the way you've numbered and lettered it. It is actually very pleasing.
Oh, thank you.
I can definitely see it. You said something about kind of revising. You had a theory, especially towards the end of last quarter. I'm right there with you. I'm still kind of reeling and brainstorming what it all means. Like, in the sense of, I did not expect 2021 to top out 69K. That just didn't add up. We see this chart, and I blew up your chart, so it's really big. You can't even see mine, really. When we look at this, it just doesn't, in my opinion, really fit anything that we've seen. Like, we have a high, and then we have a higher high, and then we have a 50% retracement. That by itself would be normal. But then we broke 65K, and now we're just kind of in between. We truly are sideways. And if you look back at Bitcoin's history, which we have right here, nothing really looks the same. You look at each peak, and each peak has this very sharp, pronounced, like needle top. And then now we have, I'm not even sure what to call it. I do like the figures you had there. It actually really does look like an inverse head and shoulders, where that recent blue arrow is. But it's just unlike anything else, in my opinion. I'm not sure what that means. I think a lot of people will be afraid to hear that. They'll think that's something bad. It doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It's simply different. That could be extra good. That could mean we have an even bigger move in front of us, but it's just speculating. It's just very weird. I expected, honestly, to hit 100K last year in like July, and I've been saying that since 2019 or something. And back then it sounded like gibberish. And last year it wasn't so crazy. And then we didn't end up doing it. So it's like, it seems something I've kind of noticed about Bitcoin is it only ever moves to places that just don't make sense. It kind of unravels all the work we do.
I agree. I mean, from a psychological perspective, I had concerns that I didn't pay enough attention to because I was too confident in where I thought it was going, when I thought it was going. I had concerns. Others had more. I mean, I was watching some big accounts that are friends of mine, say that no one expects a parabola. There's too many people calling for a parabola. There's too many people that are certain this thing is going parabolic Q4 2021, like it has in Q4 of the last two times people would call a top here and here. So
it was almost too expected, wasn't it?
It was too expected, right? And I, maybe did some mental gymnastics to say, well, it's a psyop, right? It's gonna go and be the kind of situation where the majority thinks it can't possibly happen because too many people expect it, and that therefore is going to reduce expectations that it will happen, which will ironically lead it to happen. But
the double negative, or the
double negative, right?
Yeah.
What actually happened is now it seems, and I could be misreading again based on my own bias, that the majority is certain, quote unquote, it's over, and we're entering the top was 69K. We're entering another year-long crypto winter, or even worse, because Bitcoin has never existed in a period where there has been a a serious deflationary period of the US dollar. There's never been a 70 to 80% equities market crash in Bitcoin's existence that people think will happen, that this in fact has been one big 10-year bubble, and we are going back down to $1,000, $10, $0, whatever.
Whatever.
So, right. It's, I agree with you. It seems like Bitcoin loves to do what the minority thinks it will do. And yeah, I mean, to me, you can get overly analytical with trying to read sentiment and psychology and thinking that you're the contrarian of the contrarian and all that. But, I agree that there are certainly, you can look at this in a way to say that it's doing something it never has. And maybe my interpretation here is just a way to cope with the fact that it didn't do what I initially expected, and now I'm reanalyzing it in a way that is also wrong. Could be.
Same.
But
True of all of us.
I still feel, looking at it in this context, this is what I would call my primary case, where what is making more sense to me again is to divide up the cycles, not in that particular definition, but to just look at it as a series of impulsive waves and corrective waves. And I could see the argument, and this is, I guess, I've become more keen on looking at the cycles this way, as two larger impulsive moves in the market with only one macro correction to date. You had this relatively sharp short drop here. People will call this the first bear market. And then you had a longer one, this one here, that just basically went straight down. And then you had another one that most people that are on Twitter, I think, never experienced this.
No, maybe none of them.
This one, right?
Maybe since like
This
the
one,
orange arrow.
Yeah, right. And this one's shorter than this one, but this one is longer than this one. So you can't say that there's a clear shortening of bear markets because it went initial to long to small. So my contention is that, and look, I get the arguments that projecting, trying to look at the past and map it all out onto the future is myopic maybe, and you're not paying enough attention to the new market dynamics, and you've got different players in it and whatnot. And that's certainly a valid argument. But I still do think there is value in looking at the total history of Bitcoin, and trying to understand where you might fit in that history. So
absolutely. What else would we do? I always think that's a silly thing people say. It's like, hey, the past doesn't know the future.
Right,
yeah,
right,
well, don't.
Exactly.
It's not a crystal ball, but what else are you working with then? I think
here's the thing,
a flawed past is better than just made up future, like a future telling.
That, absolutely. And that notion that past doesn't dictate future resonates with people when there's uncertainty in the present. But we forget that the last 25 times someone said that, they ended up being wrong. Yep. If you had believed, there's, I don't show it here, but this peak also here hit the same trend-based fib extension as taken from this bottom here to this low. So if you had believed that past does dictate future, and you had planned your local sells at these two fib targets because you had highs here, past definitely did dictate future by that definition, and you could have benefited from it. I did not. But I still see what I think are significant impulsive and corrective patterns in the way Bitcoin has behaved, where you could argue you had this initial very smooth, ideal parabola up, followed by another leg that was split up into much more clearly identified peaks and drops. And you had the first, what you could call the first real impulsive move up in this leg here. It went up, it hit, this is, I don't show it, but this is actually a 236 fib extension taken from here to here down to here. It hit that at the same time it hit this overextension of the 50-week EMA. This is 4 standard deviations from it. Then kind of whatever it did after, it also did after this period, after it had hit this other next key fib extension, also hitting this blue line here. And we came down, and it was very sharp, so I kind of ignored it at first, but you came down, you made this high, you came up. You didn't make a higher high technically because this was such a blow-off move, but you came up, you made another local high, and then came down and stopped just shy of this one. And, you know, the RSI pattern here is similar to what it is over here. This here is almost a more exaggerated version of the structure.
Identical.
Here, right? Virtually and then you had the next peak equidistant out. So, you know, who knows if it'll play out, but you could make the argument that this here is one large impulse, then with a major correction, and then you're having another one, yes, with different supply dynamics, different participants, but that's why it's, you know, and a larger cap, a more mature market. To me, that's an argument why it's rhyming but not repeating, in that it is, to me, it looks like a more stretched out version of what happened over here and rounder. So you still had an initial smooth arc up. Then you dropped down. To me, this correction here looks like a shrunken version of this one, or just, you know, compressed. Then it came up and you hit the same fib level while also hitting the same 4 standard deviations from the EMA. And kind of what you've done here with a bunch of sideways action has happened up here. But we did put in this higher high potentially because this was a rounder top here. You didn't have this blow off like you did here, but you still hit this overextension and this same fib extension, and whatever has happened over here has kind of happened over here. So, you know, I use all of this to say that I don't think that Bitcoin is crashing down into the abyss.
I like it.
We could certainly take out this low, and if we do, I'm going to look at it as a buying opportunity because I'm still invested in this asset in the longer term. I certainly don't think 69K was the forever top. If you do, then you should be out of the market or shorting it with confidence. If you don't, and you're in this longer term, then accumulate at lucrative times if you can. And hopefully you're not leveraged, so you can sit comfortable in your spot holdings. And I think it's going to come back sooner than people think. But even if it's not sooner, eventually.
Yeah, right. This eventually, it's inevitable. Thank you, Elon Musk, for that, for coining it's inevitable. I see you have another 618 up there on the, I think it's a logarithmic curve you got going. What price point is that 618 at?
Right. That one is at right about 200K, give or take. So that was taken from this, as Ben Cohen would say, dubious extrapolation that this first, taking from the bottom of this first parabolic run up to the top, down to its correction, put the first, you could call it, I guess, a mid-cycle peak here, right at this 618 and this blue line here. And then this 618 was taken with a second trend-based extension going from, excuse me, the bottom of this correction up to its peak down to what I could call the end of this corrective wave. Now, it's making an assumption that we have, in fact, put in that local bottom at 33. If that's true, then this 618 comes up and puts you, right about at the, it's so sensitive to some of these levels, but it also depends on where you call the very top of this impulse. I call it where you saw this first bear div here. I think this is a wave 5 sub impulse of this run here, but that 180 to 200K, and maybe purely coincidentally, it seems to intersect this log band right at an equal distance from this peak. So there's some possible confluence there.
Definitely
for that target.
I'm aiming higher. That's a solid target. I've been saying kind of the same things for many years, and we have to revise because I'm not where we thought we would be. But really, the numbers don't change for me, even if it takes longer. It doesn't really impact, because I did my projections really similarly, maybe more simply, but using fib extensions and then looking back and saying, this is the growth it saw last time, this is the growth it saw before, where should we aim? And I was convinced before we even broke 20K, I was convinced that we were going to break 20,000. We were going to go, I don't know what would happen in between, but we would end up somewhere in like in the threes, 350-ish, and then we would come back to 50K. And so to see the start of 2021 kind of dicking around 42, I was like, I'm so right. Like, this is perfect. This is going to be that low that's just kind of right under the next bear market low, and everyone's going to be waiting for it. And boy, I was wrong, at least to date. At least to date.
We've stayed there.
We've stayed there. And which is funny because that really doesn't validate or invalidate anyone. Like, the fact that we've moved sideways, I've been talking about this on the stream a lot, how sideways movement, especially when it's been so long since we've broken our high, really feels like trending down, doesn't it?
Right.
Like each day it's like, oh, we're lower. And then you look at the chart, we haven't gone lower, but it feels lower because we've spent so much time here, and that excitement, the FOMO and the craze has kind of gone away. And
we also have to remember that a large portion, myself included, I'm pretty heavily in altcoins, and I think that a large percentage of people on crypto Twitter also are heavily in altcoins, if not 100%. So some of that sentiment, I mean, altcoins, some of them are down 80%, if not more, from their all-time highs over the last year. So there's more, I think, to the sentiment than just Bitcoin's price. But you're absolutely right that sideways certainly doesn't feel sideways.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of that, because I do have altcoins as well, but I'm about 60. I think I'm like about 60% Bitcoin right now. But you're right. A lot of people, and I would say more than, I don't know, 75%, maybe all of them, all of the new people who started in crypto in the last year, 2 years, they're probably majority alts. And they're not feeling sideways. They're very much seeing down. And maybe sideways Bitcoin plus their whole portfolio is tanking. Maybe that's something I haven't, I'm not connecting with, because my portfolio is a little different.
Right. And their entries, of course, too, make a difference. I mean, if you bought Cardano down here at a penny, 2 pennies, boy, I wish I had, then you're not so hung up about sideways between basically $2 and $1 for a year. But if you bought the $2, expecting it to go straight to 5 or 10, and then we've been downtrending for 3 months, and now we're under $1, that's going to feel a little bit different.
Yeah, the ADA chart actually does look pretty brutal, doesn't it?
It does, and I know that, again, I kind of referenced that with the correction structures I was talking about. I still see that as a valid expanded flat structure, where you're putting in your C low below your A, what was put in back in July. So I still see a valid impulsive structure intact, where we have another leg higher there. But I know a lot of people think, we put in a new lower low, we're going back to half a cent.
I doubt half a cent for everybody out there. I doubt it.
No, I mean it. Yeah, everyone has their own strategy. I think it is important mentally, even if you have conviction, like I do, into what I think the most profitable outcome is going to be for the market over the next 12 months. to have a plan B, no pun intended, to have a backup plan for
Plan
what you're
B's
going to
plan
do
B.
if you're completely wrong. Yes, plan B is plan B,
Plan
right?
B's plan B's. I like it. Of
Where
course.
if the market completely goes south and we have the worst historical crash ever in crypto, what are you going to do in that scenario to have a plan that you still think is in line with your investment goals, even in the worst of alternate cases, I think is important psychologically, so that you know whichever this thing breaks, you've got a plan that can help the emotions. For me, it's um, reinvest some more capital
Mhm.
that I've got, right. So I'm not 100% in net worth wise. I've got
Good.
sources of income, and while I'm not swinging in and out of positions to compound, although at times I certainly wish I was, I've got planned entries for, you know, uh, black swan type unforeseen crashes to continue to accumulate, because I still do believe at some point, well, I think it's this year, even if it's not, the market is going to have another big move.
I like how cautious we both are now. We're like, well, maybe this year, maybe. I
Yeah,
like that
right.
because
No,
last year we were both like, we
were
didn't
both
even
not
talk last
cautious.
year, but we were both
Right.
like, this is the year. It's definitely this year. And now if we're
Yeah.
both a little uncertain, we're like, I don't know, maybe that's that double negative. Maybe that means it will not happen because we have to
Right.
keep tricking
Right.
the whales out there because they can't
I
hear
mean,
us admit it.
I completely agree with you that I think I see a lot of folks, like myself, who was confident in how the cycle was going to play out by bringing both of these cycles into their projections. Um, then it didn't do it. Now they're still sticking to how these two cycles played out, but in the bear case. So they're saying, oh, well, in fact, this was the top. It happened 4 years out. It was just lame. And now we're still going to see
Seems too easy.
this and this, right?
Seems
So
too easy to me.
I think some folks are going to be wrong twice in that way, right? But
Absolutely.
we'll see.
Absolutely. That's just Bitcoin, man. It's like we're saying these things and we're bullish, and now it's hard for just any given person to be bullish. It was very easy last year. Now it's harder, and they think, oh, these bulls are just so silly. They're just always saying it's going to go up.
Moon
And
boys.
yeah, moon boys, right? Well, I guess what they don't realize is they're new. They just started into crypto, and moon boys are usually one of two people. They're brand new and they just they think it only goes up, or they're the people who have made it through previous cycles. And we heard, I can't even tell you how many times from 2018 to 2020 I heard someone tell me Bitcoin will never go above 20K ever again. It's impossible. Where's the money going to come from? Who's gonna buy it at 20K? Yeah, that's great. Who would ever buy it at 20K? And I remember just telling people, guys, this is exactly what was said about 10,000. This is exactly what was said about 1,000, about 100, about 10, about, like, I wasn't around, but for one, there are definitely people saying it'll never be worth $1. That's crazy. And we really just move the decimal.
That's right.
It's just a process of slowly moving the decimal, and I can't tell you why. I think I would think it's safe to say it has something to do with a limited, finite supply. But it seems to be the case. It's everything that's impossible ends up happening, at least to the upside.
Right.
I would have told you that it would be. I would have said it's impossible that we saw 3,800 in 2020, and I would have been wrong. That was wild. Nobody saw that coming. That's how you can tell someone's full of crap, is if they said they saw 3K coming in 2020, they're full of crap. Just stop listening to them. Right. Nobody saw it. I was short.
There were a lot of the same voices that were certain 1K was coming when 3,500 was hit. And whether it means anything or not, I see, because you can look back and actually, Twitter is a great backtesting environment. You can actually see what people said when. That a lot of the same voices are saying now, well, 10K is coming now that we're sitting at 30 whatever. So
30 somethings. Yeah, I've forgotten. It's like somewhere Somewhere in the three,
somewhere
fours. I
between.
don't know.
It really doesn't matter
Tell you what.
until it's north of 60, in my view.
You know,
We're still in the
you,
same box.
you know why I think we won't see 10K, and I'm gonna knock on wood because I know a lot of you would hurt a lot out there if we did.
Right.
10K though is a price where I said earlier, 37,000 is not interesting to me. Like that's almost 10x my previous buy.
Right.
But 10K, that might
Mhm.
interest me. And I am certainly
You're
not
not
the
going to get
most
that
common
lucky.
investor. Exactly. Exactly. I'm certainly not the most common investor, but there's more out there like me. We're certainly not the majority, but those people also have seen their wealth, move that decimal over, and they're going to be enticed by a, probably similar price. And I think that there's just too much to lose from whatever the market maker is. It's not a person or
Right.
group. It's like everyone acting together. I
Mhm.
think that it would be a huge loss for them. There's so much hardened, like diamond hand capital that would jump at anything under
Right.
10K. I think. I think
Well, I
it's
mean,
a dream.
never, right. Even in a true, probably the closest thing we've ever seen and may ever see to a black swan, which is something that's truly not envisioned, like a pandemic that hasn't happened in 100 years. Even in that scenario, we did not
Didn't even break
close
our low.
beneath the 200-week moving average, with right now is at
That's
about
correct.
20.
It's
So,
exactly at the previous. It's at like 20,000 exactly now, which is wild to me.
right.
That's where I keep my
No,
sights if I was
I'm
looking.
not. I've not specifically called bottom once. I'm not calling it now because I'm certain if I did, it would blow through it. But um, I would be surprised, very surprised, to see the July lows broken with, um, especially a 2-week close, even a week close, if at all. So I'm yeah, I think higher probability. I think there's a greater than 50% chance that the 33 or whatever it was, 32 and change, um, could be our local low. I think there's a very strong probability that 28 is, and below
Same.
20, I think you're
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 dreaming.
greedy in the other direction in that case. That's
Truth.
bare euphoria.
Well, they sold. They sold on. They sold it. They sold. Man, how many people sold in what 2020 in like September at 9,800 or something, thinking, "Oh, I
Hmm.
knew it. Bear
Right,
market
right,
forever." Then that's the
right.
number that they want. They sold there, and then that's the number they want now, so that they were right. And that's like the common story in Bitcoin is people
Yep.
jump out and price keeps going, and they just kind of get frozen in time. And they're stuck there waiting for that price
Hmm.
to come back.
Hmm.
I don't want to
Well,
name
that's the
names,
story
but
of any bull market. I mean, the cliche of, maybe not a cliche, or the saying of a bull market climbs a wall of worry. I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, you could argue this is one giant bull market.
I would
200-week moving average has done nothing but go up and to the right. So
forever.
I've never really understood why Moon Boy is a bad thing when the data has gone up and to the right on the right 2-week or weekly moving average. It's not. I mean, it's factual. It's only
Mhm.
gone up on a
I'm a
certain
moon
time
boy.
frame.
I
We're
live on the
proud
moon.
proud Moon Boys. Call right whatever you want to.
Moon boys.
When you stop calling people Moon Boys and everyone is in agreement, that's where it's going. Then you'll see me be the anti-Moon Boy.
The bear boy. Wait, the floor boy. I don't know something.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
something. Man, did you have
So,
any? I know you said you had a few charts. I think we're already close to an hour in. But if you wanted to, if there's anything
yeah, we're
else you wanted
good.
to make sure we got in here, I wanted to get it in.
Um, yeah, I mean, we talked about this one here. We looked at the two. I mean, this corrective structure to me is still intact, so long as
Yeah.
we don't close below, or even, I guess we can't wick below our 28K level. I could honestly see it turning into something like this, which, going back to, if we are in fact taking this type of structure and just really rounding and stretching it out,
Mhm.
or maybe actually would go back here, oops, where you have these two, or if that's where we are, then you might expect that we might come up to even the 50s and then come back down, possibly back into the high 30s, and keep some sort of channel or trend line intact all the way through here. Everyone is screaming head and shoulders, thinking we're going to nuke down to 10K, when in fact we're just building out this type of A, B, C, D, E triangle sideways through, I don't know, May, even June, before we finally take off in wave 5. I could certainly see that happening. And
it would be my fault if it does happen. It's my fault. I joked about it. Like it was like I can't remember if it was post November. I think it was before then. But I joked about it live because, you know, like January through May, June, July or whatever, that was one really big head and shoulders that just never validated by like breaking under the neckline. Then we built this second one and I said, guys, you all know what's going to happen, right? And I drew out the third iteration like into, you know, whatever year. And I was like, just going to be one giant fake head and shoulders. And hopefully I didn't joke that into existence because I don't want to wait. I don't want that.
Right. Well, you could bring up. Yeah, Peter Schiff's Head and Shoulders plotted on a log scale, which actually gives you I think a negative $5,000 target was what was being called for here. And
you know what?
July.
Crypto Jeb brought that up. That's really, I like that he said that. He's like, well, if this is a Head and Shoulders, we have a negative price target, and a negative price target is not possible for Bitcoin.
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of derivatives tricks you can play out there. So
I will buy every single spot Bitcoin for 0 cents. I will buy all 21 million. They don't even exist, some of them yet. I'll buy them all for 0 cents. Right. I give you all my word.
Yeah. When people get really bearish, I like to say that I hear, it's not confirmed, but I hear the support at 0 is rock solid. And I do think it will hold.
Well, and then you got a guy front run you at 1 cent.
He's gonna pick everything up at $1.
Yeah, I'm gonna be left.
The guy from the 2011 Bitcoin forum who said we're never breaking $1. He's still there with his bids.
I love that.
At $1. Yeah.
I love how popular that image has gotten. Like that guy, and if you look, you'll see that there, like underneath it, it's like Bitcoin can never sustain above 50K, and it's kind of confusing. Like, wait, what? Did he write that back then? That's his Bitcoin Talk signature. So like that you update. So since then, since like 9-10 years ago when he was writing that, he's moved the bar how many times
from
to
$5
where
to 50,000.
Exactly, to where now it can never sustain 50. It's just hilarious, like how cyclical all of it is. And I think if you can internalize that, not speaking to you, but kind of people listening, it's like if you can internalize that it's always going to be like peak fear, peak uncertainty, peak like whatever. It just has to do whatever it is that will make you actually afraid.
Right.
And then once it does, then it moves again. It's like beyond TA. It's what would break you? Okay, well that's going to come. And then if you don't break, then you win. That's what I've learned in crypto, at least.
Absolutely. I mean, not vanishing, even if things get worse than you and I expect them to. Finding some way to stay in the market, even if it's just holding your positions that at certain levels, the RR of trying to sell and rebuy just becomes really low. Somehow finding a way to stay in the market when everyone tells you this time is actually really seriously, truly going to be different and we're going to 0. It's hanging in there. If you have spare income, accumulating more. I mean, yeah, that's proven to be very profitable in the long run. And of course, nothing is 100% certain. Perhaps the most bearish of bears are right, and we have reached the end of the bubble, and it's all been a lie, and we're going. But everything's probability. You know, you've gotta, if you're going to invest in something, you have to know it's not 100%. Hopefully, it's greater than 50. Otherwise, you should go to the roulette table, or I think that's probably worse than 50.
Oh yeah.
Just 48. Is that what it is? 48%.
Yeah, it is 2 greens.
Win rate. Okay. You can tell I don't actually gamble.
No, that's funny. Neither do I. I just know the probabilities.
Just on altcoins.
Just on altcoins, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the last thing I guess we could look at is something I know you keep a close eye on, these weekly Ichi clouds, which
Oh yeah,
I've tried to get more into Ichimoku recently. I find it a fascinating set
isn't it
of TA tools that is kind of
amazing?
unlike anything else, because it
Anything.
does have like forward projecting levels here. But I really find that another point to me that shows. And again, I mentioned I look at the market less and less as bear bull and more impulse and correction, where I view this very much as a bullish continuation, flat correction, rather than these, which were zigzag type corrections at the end of a 5-wave impulse. And the Ichi clouds to me look remarkably different.
Hmm.
Where I mean, this was going vertical and was a single line when we were down at this position. Which I know some people are looking at this fractal and they say, "Oh, look, this here is exactly like this here." And if you look at the low time frame, it is pretty remarkable how similar it's been going. And they say, "Well, look, we're following this fractal. That means we're in a bear market." Well, first of all, my response to them is, "What
Yeah.
about the way up?"
What about
That
everything?
mean that means we were in a bear market here, which is kind of my point. I don't call it a bear market; I call it a correction. But if you argue this means bear market, then this also must have meant we were already in a bear market. And again, that's kind of my point, is I think we haven't impulsively topped since early 2021, and we've been correcting since. But even look at where we are now. What I would like to see is, as I'm sure you're probably looking at too, not closing a week under, well, I think this is 34K here at the bottom of this cloud with the settings that I use. This is 34K. And then if we can see a week fully open and close above the Kumo here, historically that has been a pretty solid high time frame breakout signal. And that's only at 42K, kind of insultingly, because that's been the key level for a year.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can see that in the near term, um, that would get me kind of excited. Now, again, we could go up to 50 and come back down and retest this cloud out here in May, and for another 3-4 months, basically do nothing. I don't know. But yeah, I know people may want to kind of hear some of what they might expect price wise for the next 3 months. And what I'm looking at, these are some key levels here. Not closing under 34, seeing if we can get a full candle body open and close above 42. And then that 50-week moving average that's up at, I think, about 48K right now. That's, we clear over that kind of puts any bear argument, I think, in the rearview mirror, because all of these past corrections, like this rejection here, was off the, well, I don't know if this was off the. Once we've fallen underneath the 50 in these bears, we never reclaimed it until a long time later. So getting over that would be a pretty good milestone too. But
I noticed on your Ichi here, you don't have the Kaijun and Tenkan.
yeah, I don't have the Kaijun and Tenken shown. Yeah, that was just to
Okay.
some of the noise and just show from a Kumo support and breakout standpoint what I'm looking at. But certainly, yeah, if you see a bullish cross of those two, especially on the weekly, that would be a pretty powerful signal. I know there are some traders that like to see a close above the daily cloud, coincident with a bullish cross between the Kaijun and the Tenkan.
Just curious. I was curious. Like,
yeah.
I respect though, and I think this is a problem for a lot of traders, especially when they go to share their TA, is not knowing how to cut out noise. So like I respect, like this picture you have, it's very clear. You don't have anything other than what you're showing. And like
Right.
the TK and KJ can get a little messy. People have problems with that. I was just curious because they're in a very interesting spot, and it's weird how we even have different settings. I just use the default ones. I've messed around with a lot of different things. Clouds in the same spot. Clouds in the same spot. Like everything points to like two important values, and it's like 42K and 52K. It's like that's it.
Right. Well, and that's then up at near the 21 week
Yep.
moving average, right? I mean,
Everything.
50, 52, 53. I mean, you can bet just from a psychology standpoint, there's going to be a lot of shorting happening at that level. And we'll just have to see, I guess, if the composite man wants to blow through it or not. I don't think it'll happen on the first try, but
no, you gotta get a fake out. You gotta
if
you
you look at
gotta
other
have like a big red
corrective
candle.
structures like this, there's going to be what looks like a rejection there and a lower high, and people freak out, and then we short squeeze past it, something like that.
That's what I'm hoping for. I don't know.
Nice.
At this, I feel like it's bullish how careful I have to be with my language lately. It's like I hope and all these things in time, and it's like that must be a sign. It must be a sign that we're all starting to like get more conservative with the speech because nothing has happened. That's what blows me away. Is nothing has happened, and we all keep getting more careful. And at the same time, we definitely see people who have been bearish for years become louder or more vocal, and maybe that's a good sign. Maybe that's what I'll start trading off of now.
You could probably do a pretty decent swing trading job just by counter trading the right polls, or even better, I've had a wonder, if I just set aside a portion of my portfolio and I simply bought a bunch of stuff when fear and greed hit 20 and then sold it all and waited when it hit 80, like how good would I do? I think sentiment trading
pretty good.
Probably about as good as trying to read the charts.
Probably, my friend. Oh, geez.
So where do you think we're going?
Not
to put you on the spot. You mentioned my targets are lower than where you're looking. You're still looking for north of 200K for
yeah. I'm still looking at this point. I can't even change it at this point because it's been so long. It's like why? What's even the point? My plan, and this got foiled in typical crypto fashion, that I was very public about, is I'm going to start scaling out at 100,000. I don't know where the top is because no one knows where the top is, but 100,000 I think is, I was way more confident then, but I'm still confident, is a very achievable target. And so at 100,000, I was going to sell 1% of my portfolio, and every 10,000 increase up, so it's 100, 110, 120, 130. I was going to sell another 1%, and at 400,000, that's when I would stop. And what would happen then is that would leave me, in the scenario that we went past 400,000, I would have 30% cash, 70% crypto still. In the event we went to 200,000, I would be at 10% cash, 90% crypto, etc. And that was pretty much, that's what I was going to do. Because that way I am taking some kind of profit. It's acknowledging I don't know where the top is. If I aim too high, I still get to scale out. And if I aimed too low, I'm not stuck, completely coinless. And I'm probably still going to do something like that. I'm certainly not going to sell my portfolio here and be like, oh, let me get that 20K, whatever doomsday scenario. I'm in a sit and wait. I'm just waiting at this point, and I hate it because I've been saying that for a year, maybe. But what I really think will happen is there's a possibility we see lower than 28, but if we do, I think it'll be extremely brief, and I think we head back up, and I think we'll move to the upside much faster than we moved to the downside from 60K. I think it'll be a much quicker journey. So all right, I'll just say I think we have a higher low here, and I think we go back to the all-time high. I've been wrong before. I'm not afraid to be wrong again.
I think there's a decent chance that happens. I think that my conservative case right now is more grind with plenty of inter-grind emotions that actually don't mean anything because effectively sideways through May or even June before a real move up happens. But I would love to see a quicker one start in March. That would be great.
March would be a good time. March would be good timing in general. It'll be 2 years from the big old crash. Like a 2-year rolling chart would look very spicy with a new high in March. I think
Hmm.
I've been saying this too, is like if March comes and goes and
Hmm.
nothing has happened, and I mean nothing in the sense of like there's no new all-time high, we're like at relatively the same price,
Hmm.
I'll probably re-examine that. That to me will be a that'll just have a weird
Hmm.
flavor to it. You know what I mean? It's like we've gone through the whole
Right.
first quarter and there's no real movement. I'm certainly not going
Right.
to bail on crypto. I'll tell you right now, there's
Right.
nothing that's going to make me bail on Bitcoin. Like totally, period.
Hmm.
Your whoever's like most bearish nightmare scenario like wouldn't get me to bail. Literally
Hmm.
nothing would. The lower it goes, just the more of my own money will end up getting back in. Um,
Hmm.
it's weird.
Yeah, I mean,
It's weird. Just
it
a weird
really could
chart
happen. I
lately.
mean, I personally would not be bummed or surprised to see um, basically nothing happen even through May. I mean, if possibly we have the same kind of duration that we had between these two impulsive peaks, but between this one and the next one, then like I said, this one took about 480 days. We're at 380, give or take now. So, there might be another 3 months of what this did after it recovered. If where we are right now is kind of a gentler version of the March 2020 crash, and we need to spend some time going back up and then sideways for another 90 to 100 days before the next move happens, then that could put us, yeah, May or June of still being between high 40s and mid 30s. Um, so it would still kind of be in keeping with this structure and this symmetry for
Yeah.
me. Not sure what alts are going to do in that time. It really depends on where we go sideways, I think, as to how much those will bleed out. When you go sideways after Bitcoin is down, people get angry
Yeah.
and
Lose
fearful
risk
and fell
appetite.
away. Right. They just risk it. Right. They just leave. When you're sideways after a move up, then that's when alts usually run. But that's not where we are right now. So, yeah.
It's just so weird to even imagine for me that we're gonna like have significant downside after this. It's so weird. Like you look at hash rate, if you
Right.
look at things that aren't candles, right?
Hmm.
Nothing in the world would agree with that. We're
Right.
breaking new all time highs in hash rates constantly now. I think it's like been
Right.
multiple times in the last few weeks, despite
Hmm.
price not being up.
Hmm.
Uh, how many states in the United States have now proposed, legal tender for Bitcoin? How many
Legalize it.
countries
Right.
have pursued it?
Right. You've
It,
got El
it
Salvador with 500 million or something
they just
in
raised
bonds.
500 million.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. You've got
so bearish, so bearish.
yeah, it's. I mean, all the on-chain geniuses will tell you the supply is like dry kindling, and a little bit of demand spark. I think we surprise some people. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you look at all the others. I mean, so many things are near or at historical bottoms, not just for this cycle, but going back to 2011. I mean, the asymmetry cannot be to the downside from here, depending on your time horizon.
That's how I see it. Not financial advice, everybody.
Not financial
Just
advice.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see it playing out any other way. Uh, I don't know. Hope I'm right, I guess. I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
No,
Then
I'm
someday
not
we
worried.
can be, the market will be extremely fearful at 370,000 someday.
Absolutely. Absolutely will. It sounds absurd, but to be
Right.
fearful at 37,000 would have sounded equally absurd
Absurd
2
at
years ago.
370. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you mean
I
even
think,
at 2019 in early 2020 to
right.
say you'll be afraid at 37,000 would have been gibberish.
Hmm.
And I trust that gibberish will continue. Um, my
I think it will.
convictions only get stronger, and people have been in crypto longer than me,
Hmm.
and their conviction, I assume, is the same, or similar. I think that's a big factor I don't think people see when they start is everyone who
Hmm.
started before you has a deeper rooted belief or deeper rooted confidence than you. And you can't
Hmm.
really see that. You can listen
Right.
to them, but that doesn't mean much. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing is going to get me to sell, period. There it
Hmm.
is. Like nothing's going to get me to sell like down.
Right.
I'll only look to
Right.
add more.
I think that's the right way to look at it. I mean, everyone loves the story about the guy who bought Bitcoin or thousands of Bitcoin for $1 and is still holding them all now. My gosh, why didn't I do that? Well, even if you had, do you know how many moments, just like you're feeling now, you would have experienced from $1 to now? You would have only held if you had conviction that people called insanity, or you simply forgot that you bought it. That's the only two ways you're going to hold from $1 to now.
Absolutely. And people like think, oh, well, those people are going to panic here. Like you just said, they've seen this collapse and expand over and over again. To be afraid at 37,000 to me is insanity. Those people, like, they clearly could have taken profit infinite times, and they didn't, or they didn't and got back in, but more likely they didn't. They aren't going to when it falls. Like, say we drop 50% from here or something, they're not going to panic sell at 20K. Like, it's just silly. Sometimes I have to just say how silly it is, because I get used to hearing it, these kind of same arguments, but they remain equally silly. They don't get any less silly.
They do.
Oh man, I think we've been on for longer than we planned. I think we should probably wrap it up. I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go get some food as well. But
I think I'm gonna have some bear meat. No.
Yeah. Well, what are we doing? I glanced here a second ago.
Nothing.
We're at we're still dancing around 37.3. I like to think about the guy that bought. Guy who, like, someone convinced him all Bitcoin's going to make you a millionaire back in January of last year, and he grabbed it 37, and then, like, he's a casual Bitcoin holder. He's like, I'm not going to check it for a year, see how rich I am. He opens it up today, and he's like,
my app's frozen.
What you said this was
my
volatile.
app update.
What's going on? It's supposed to be up and down.
Actually, look at these last. If you look at these last 3 dailies, what was it? So the 21st, it just barely didn't bullish engulf in the daily, and then yesterday closed and just barely didn't bearish engulf on the daily. What are the odds that we trade up to 38.2 today and then close at like 38.1? I would say pretty good. I'd say pretty good odds.
Yeah, there's a good chance if we break 38, we're going to 38.1.
Yeah,
quickly.
huge. Oh my goodness.
It's scalper's market right now, that's for sure.
True. And we're just sitting out like suckers, right? Not scalping.
I know. That's what I say. I mean, even if just, like, I don't know, you probably see it too with these tools that you use, like Ichi, or even just something like the daily super trend. Like, if you would have just had a portion of your portfolio and sold when we went red and rebought when we went green, like, you wouldn't have nailed the Pico tops and bottoms, but you would have profited. Just using that free trading view indicator. So it's tempting to do some more of that. Try to compound while we're going sideways.
Until then it jumps up or down, and I love crypto. I love how crazy it makes everyone too. And I love that I no longer get crazy about it. It's just like watching other people get crazy. Oh man.
Right.
All right.
That's probably
I need to eat. Guys, Tech Dev is amazing. We should all thank him for being on the show. Follow him on Twitter. His link is in the video description below. If you're new here, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. We do lots of content live, some of it not live. We'll have to have you on again, brother. Is there any closing words for us?
Anytime. Closing words. I guess I should mention I offer a newsletter. I don't want to plug that too hard.
Go ahead, plug it.
Yeah, through my Twitter, you can sign up for a newsletter. I put out 2 issues a week, a brief one on Wednesdays, a full one on Saturdays, where I cover more of this type of Bitcoin mid and long-term analysis and altcoin targets, although people don't seem super interested in those now, but I think they will be eventually. So I gotta actually get to write the Wednesday update today after we sign off. But yeah, feel free to sign up for that through my Twitter handle. Closing words, I guess. It's It's an interesting market right now. I would say just hang in there. You know, hopefully you're not overexposed and leveraged, and you can sit comfortably even if you're a bit underwater. Um, Everyone I think who has ever really made it in this market was underwater at one point,
Absolutely.
so it's all paper for now. If you can accumulate at lower levels, go for it. If you want to swing trade a little bit with a piece to compound, go for it. But yeah, I guess just realize that generally the market tends to go opposite to your present emotions within a certain given time frame. So if you're really feeling down right now, that probably means you're closer to a bottom than a top. And when you're feeling really excited, you're probably closer to a top than a bottom. So I wouldn't, yeah, as hard as it is, try to separate the emotions from the market and use them as an indicator if you're even going to pay attention to them at all.
Right on.
Yeah,
Great
that's
advice.
pretty much it. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been great getting to know you, and yeah, thanks for giving me almost an hour and a half of your time on a Wednesday.
Anytime, man. There's not enough of us bulls out there.
Very few these days.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
few.
we're a rare breed for now.
For now, they'll be back.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Tech Dev, you're amazing. Everybody else,
You too, man. Props
jump
for what
in the
you do. You've
Discord.
been doing it longer than me, so thanks for keeping the community calm.
Of course, and I'll continue to do that, and I'll never stop. Jump in the Discord, subscribe, all the shill, guys. Catch us tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow? I don't actually remember. Something, and it's likely going to be on YouTube. So have a great night.